Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor Baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
You know, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo.
So you would be considered white, in my opinion.
You're the blackest one in this room.
I think so.
And what happened was his mama got pregnant on the other side of the border. And then a few hours before, just before it was time for him to pop out, she jumped across the border and let him fall on American soil. So he became the anchor baby. You don't call him the anchor baby for nothing. Amazing.
We like this anchor baby, right?
Hello, I'm the American Anchor Baby, and this is my show. How you doing, everybody? We're rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man on the Bond Network, folks, and I appreciate you tuning in to my show here, to my little show here, so appreciate it, and it is a pleasure to be back with you on this fine Tuesday, folks. Back with you here in the chair in the studio. We're getting ourselves situated here. Everybody's coming in. And we got a couple things to get into today, okay? So make sure you click the like, the subscribe, and all that. If you want to call in, it's 888-775-3773. And what can I say? It's a fine Tuesday. We'll be discussing the Australian social media ban. You see, there are a lot of things going on in the world. And what happens is there's a lot of overlapping motivations. And you aren't always getting what's on the label on the box, okay? But you bought it. Australia seems to have bought it. We're going to get into that. A lot of things at play there. And some stuff in the news that we can connect with here on what is happening. It's more than just protecting the children. But the parents largely believe it is. In fact, the vast majority of parents in Australia agree with this, over 70%. And so I want to get into some of those things there, as well as the annexation of Canada by Trump. As you're seeing the title, yes, it has already happened. Canada, you are the USA. Well, no, that's a joke. That's a fantasy. I thought, my sweet Canada, we would be much closer yet again. After leaving, you know, as an American Anchor Baby, I grew up in Canada, holds a place in my heart, and one of the finest nations on the earth gave me, the Anchor Baby, a home. And so with talks of annexation of Canada, we'll see. I want to tell you a little bit about that. Really talking global conflicts today. Turns out, get this, people still care about resources and power. But I thought it was a brand new world. I thought it was a new world order, the post-war consensus. What happened to our order? You know, on that, some people would love to see this order come down. They're done with it. It's evil. I mean, people call, you know, whether you're on this side or that side, they want to see it come down. What fools. Most have no clue what they're supporting out there, fighting for this or that group. People that are far from you, not understanding what it would mean for them, the little guy, and their so-called loved ones, ready to plunge the world into chaos for something they barely understand, and really, they only understand through emotions. What an evil source to live your life through. So I want to discuss all those things today. Hopefully we can get to all of it. 888-775-3773. Like I said, a pleasure to be back with you. Making sure that we're situated. Rumble.com. What's up, Rumble? Rumble.com/American Anchor Baby. I'm live there. I am live on DLive.tv /Gorgonzola. What's up, everybody? And, of course, Punchy.tv. Can't forget Punchy.tv. It's developing. The chat now scrolls. It automatically scrolls now. It's freaking great. It's freaking awesome. Let's go. We got Canada in the chat. And you know what? Might as well just call yourself Americans. How you doing, fellow Americans in the chat? Lovely to see you here. It's a beautiful day. All that land in the north finally handled by a man. Donald Trump. Hey, that's the fantasy, you know, it's a joke. They're a sovereign nation. Don't worry, YouTube. Don't worry, globalists. Or why am I talking about globalists? They'd like to see some of this. Look, get it together, Trudeau. Or don't. You could be America. We're all brothers. It would be fantastic. But anyways, look, is that everything? 888-775-3773. Like I said, like I started off here, I want to jump right into this Australia social media ban. And now you may have heard of this, but it's exactly what it sounds like. No social media for anyone under 16. Big old ban. And it's supposed to be the first law ever in the world designed to keep young children off of social media. 16 years old. Young children, is that fair? 16, you're basically a man. Grow up. Weren't they men much younger? By the time you were like 20, some of these statesmen in America, some of the greatest men in history who you read about in school were in their 20s running stuff. And we're reading Forbes, and they're telling us these 16-year-olds are young children. You know, you start seeing the language, and you realize what are the details that are getting flubbed around here, and it's emotions and the children. I mean, the fact that you're calling 16-year-olds young children, right? You got to understand the mindset of people. So more on this. A ban on social media for children under 16, which drew criticism from social media companies. More on that later. But this passed in the Australian Senate, okay? And it's going to be the first law designed to ban, children off social media. The ban itself, now it comes down from this law, and what this law will allow Australia to do is fine companies, pretty major fines, for not preventing anyone younger than 16 from having accounts. Now, the details are a little hazy. Now, how will this be implemented, for example? When? How will it be enforced and regulated? A lot of questions, a lot of questions. But this passed 34-19 on Thursday. I don't know how y'all do your laws over there, so I don't know what that means. But shout out Australia. But 34 of y'all beat the 19 on Thursday after passing the House. And so that's what's going on, okay? It's coming down. The children have no say. And they're going to be banned. The questions, again, how are they going to do it? Really, only thing stipulated so far is that they will have a fine, and they're going to have this much time to figure it out, bud, before those fines start coming down. And I see the calls coming in. Thank you so much, by the way. Callers, 888-775-3773. Allow me to get into this, and we're going to get right to calls afterwards. But I appreciate the patience. If you're hearing my voice, you're on hold. The Anchor Baby doesn't have a call screener. So, you're on hold. Don't worry. I see you. And I'm seeing you guys talk about the great reunification in the chat. It's incredible. You know, I heard back in the day, they once feared a great nation, a great people. Once they started unifying, they call them what? What do they call them? The Franks? No. Someone might be able to correct me, but basically what we know is Germans today. They started a Kaiser, a great Kaiser back in the day said, you know what? I'm going to unify my people under one flag. And it became a powerhouse of the world. So much so it put a lot of their European brethren on hush mode and fear mode. You know, it depends on how you look at history. Hey, it depends on how you've interpreted it. This veil between us and the back then ago. But they say, however you see that situation, whoever the bad guy was there, it ended with war. So will the great reunification of the North bring such exorbitant success and wealth in the world that it would make the world fearful? I don't know. But it's time to annex Canada. It's for the good. It's for their own good. We need to save those Canadians. It's for their own good. The brothers, the Magna Carta brothers, but more on that later. I'm just letting you know, callers, I see you, 888-775-3773. I'm telling you about this law here. It's expected quickly to become law when it will give social media companies 1 year to prevent those under the age limit having accounts, otherwise risking major fines, millions of dollars. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Anthony, I haven't even taken a gander. I have not even laid eyes on what this guy looks like. Anthony Albanese praised the law in an opinion piece Tuesday, positioning Australia to lead the world in the safety of young people. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. Ain't that nice? Mr. Anthony. Behold, Anthony. Physiognomy check? Are we good? Are we good? I don't know about that stuff. Someone's got to help me. Anthony is saving the children. He's serious about it. And so, again, the questions remain about the implementation. Exactly how can this go down? How are you going to keep people off? How are you going to keep them from making fake accounts? How are you going to make sure that you're verifying this? A lot of questions arise from even technological, logistical standpoints. Is it even possible? You can start imagining the types of tools a entity such as a government would need to enforce such things, like an e-verification of sorts, for example. I've said this before, and you guys were saying that's way too far in the future, Nick. But I'm telling you, the big trend of the world is to connect your real identity, your physical self, your even down to your biological biometrics, and connect that to your online identity, where you'll be unable to, at the worst, at the most radical on the end of this, shall we call it, trend or prediction of what might come, it's the complete inability to be anonymous online, and who knows even more. But the point is, you can start to imagine the types of tools that a nation would need to implement this, okay? Stuff that is around. Facial recognition was a major thing that was tested on the Australians. You know, something about Australia, something I heard, remember, through COVID and stuff. Does it feel like Australia is the testing grounds for certain things? We're going to get into a number of these questions. And even Australia's geopolitical position, its mere geographic proximity to certain places, China, Russia, we can maybe start to glean what may be going on in the background, but more on that later. I want to talk about the anxious generation, the poor children, the anxious generation. They're so anxious. They're so anxious. They're full of fear. And the parents are full of fear as well. And they feel really guilty right now. They're looking at their anxious generation, and the Australians are saying, we got to do something about it. We got to do something about it. Okay? And I'm hearing from different reports that, various reports are pointing out that there was what they're calling the straw that broke the camel's back, the tipping point in a public debate about this social media thing, that it was, I hear, contentious in Australia. I'm only really hearing about it now, but contentious in Australia. But what tipped it over, apparently, are the thoughts of Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt, he's an American. He wrote the book, Anxious Generation. And he makes a number of claims here. He makes a number of claims about children, the anxious generation, and all that. But first, if I may, what's up, y'all? Let's see what Al Jazeera, I guess we're going to Al Jazeera for this one. What they seem to have already asked the children, the kids, the little tiny young little baby children that are 16, what they thought about the social media ban. I haven't seen this, but it might be interesting. I wanted to play this.
In a world first, Australia will chat TikTok, Instagram, and it's supposed to protect their mental health.
We've got your back is our message to Australian parents.
But there's a reason we've travelled outside the city, 2 hours outside of Melbourne, to this rural town, because some psychologists say actually this ban could isolate a generation of children. So let's see what they think about it.
I reckon it's unfair.
Yeah? Tell me why.
Because I don't see my friends.
Wait, sorry. I did not even understand this child.
I reckon
it's unfair.
A generation
I reckon
of
it's
children.
unfair,
So let's see
he
what
says.
they think about it.
I reckon it's unfair.
Yeah? Tell me why.
Because I don't see my friends much.
I don't see my friends
they don't
much
really
because they don't really come down.
That's a way for me to
It's
talk
my
to
way
them.
for me to talk to
I
them.
don't really mind it because that'll probably get me out of the house a bit more.
You don't mind it. It'll get
It's
them
not
out
a
the
bad
house
idea.
more.
I don't mind it. Well, my kids are restricted because there's too much bullying on social.
Oh, too much bullying. What the? Mama. You're going to protect your little son from bullying your whole life? What are you going to do? You think that's a proper way of raising anyone? Even your daughter? What kind of world do you want to create, parents?
Social media, it's actually ridiculous because they don't get you at school, they get you on social media.
Do you have social media?
No, except on my mum's phone.
How do you get on your mum's phone?
With her password to unlock it.
Yeah, the children, they're smart. Way smarter than the parents with these things. They're quite adept in this world. And we want to hamper that, seemingly. It's like the world is going to continue. It reminds me of these Luddites who wanted to close the ports. Remember, they're striking. It's like, well, you can't modernize the ports. What about the job? You can't modernize? What's wrong with you? You think social media is just going to go away? These are the things I'm thinking about.
It's supposed to come into effect at the end of 2025, so children under the age of 16 still have another year of doom scrolling left.
Year of doom scrolling, they put it, but as you heard, one of them said, hey, I socialize with my friends. I actually do the socializing y'all are saying we're not doing, and the lack of socializing that you're saying is hurting us. It's maybe a little more complicated. So I wanted to show you that real quick. And let me express to you, where was I? Wait, what? Whew, there we go. So, Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt, and the books and thoughts that have gotten the over 70% of Australian parents supporting this, okay? And so he wrote this book, Anxious Generation. And let's see, where did I put it? Oh, Lord. When you want to use your stuff, there it is. Jonathan Haidt, Anxious Generation. Book on mental health struggles among younger generations, particularly born after 1995, referred to as Gen Z. See, I am a zillennial. I'm just like barely a year away. So Haidt attributes the trend of anxiety and mental health and all this to several factors. He says social media is a major impact. Haidt argues that the widespread use of social media, particularly platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, has exacerbated feelings of inadequacy, bullying, and anxiety, especially among teenage girls. You start gathering the angle Jonathan's coming from. Feeling bad, mama protect him. But you got to remember, where does mama protectiveness come from? It usually is a reaction to something. And the reaction is what? Essentially their anxiety and their problems. But they are seeing something weird with the social medias. I feel like you can't totally discount Jonathan Haidt because he describes the decline in free play A decrease in unsupervised play and exploration has deprived children from just normal growing up. And it's funny, it's ironic that he has a whole segment on safetyism and helicopter parenting. But yet I can't help but take in how his whole his solution, because he's all over these interviews right now. They're saying, your book, it's got the Australians agreeing. How do you feel? He's saying, it's great. We need to protect the children. We need to ban them and protect them. He's basically helicopter parenting, in my opinion. It's what it seems like. Jonathan Haidt. So they're saying it's the one. It's got people thinking. I'm watching these interviews with Haidt, and he describes this major problem in the U.S., for example. He describes how legislation allows people to claim in America that they are 13, which is apparently an adult on the internet. There's some law, and you got to be like 13 to use social, like a bunch of stuff. And it's not really enforced, and you just have to claim it. And there's no one really checking. And he makes it a big deal. We need to fix this. The harm on the children is so bad. It's been the worst thing we've ever done to the children. He keeps saying this in the interviews. What we've done to the children is so bad. What happened to Gen Z is that they have no time for real friends because they're online, he says. They don't share laughter. They don't share laughter. And there may be some point there. But he says, we can't keep up. We're unable to keep our kids off social media. The parents are trying, so we must ban it at like a national level. A lot of things I think about that, I get this sense of desperation. Like, sure, media, social media, technology, how the world is this onslaught of information. It's like this onslaught of information. I think for most people, it's hard to make sense of, so they stay out of it. It causes them pain to deal with it. So it's like, let me just make things simple. If something could just make it simple for me, tell me how to think. That's how most people are. Imagine now with this onslaught of information. I mean, that's why I do this show. I'm your curator. I'm the one plugged in, taking on the hits, sacrificing my mind and body for all of you to curate only the best. But I'm thinking about this connection they say is there. It's an interesting thing to talk about. The new law was drafted in response to what the Labour Prime Minister says is a clear causal link between the rise of social media and the harm to the mental health of young Australians. But when I read that, I don't want to discount the conversation like it's not worthwhile, but to say that's the cause, folks, it's just simply not. Anxiety is just a soft word for fear. Anxiety is just a soft word for hatred. No, it's a soft word for fear, and fear is a soft word for hatred. See, the thing is, Australian parents, you raised little demons. You raised little hateful demons. Their wicked hearts has caused them to love the world and identify with not their parents, nothing right, but their ego. And this fear is deep. It's inside. It's a nasty spirit. And this spirit is afraid of everything. It's afraid of everything. It cares about what people think. It wants to consume everything. It actually hates everything. Full of fear. That's what your anxiety is. So if I may, when you're talking about causes here, I must jump in. When you start taking in this story, you realize the tremendous guilt and fear parents are operating in. And instead of dealing with this reality, their anxious children and whatever they're seeing them do online, getting into, instead of dealing with that reality, with what they lack, they ask for desperate, blunt measures. Someone else take this responsibility from me. Someone else take this responsibility from me. And on top of that, they're seeing the rising rates of suicide, the strange people they're talking to. And the parents, instead of loving their children, they instead feel guilt and control, feel guilt and fear, which controls their behavior and causes them to feel desperation about their children. This whole thing is, in most cases, I think, desperate parents. And you know, a desperate parent is not operating in love. They're just feeling bad. They're like, oh my God, what have I done? So now I got to freak out and do something else. And now I'm going to freak out and do something else. And that's what everybody does with their lives. They torpedo their lives through their fear and emotions. And their fear and emotions guide them to the next mistake and blunder and the next thing and the next thing. And they torpedo their lives, traumatize the children. So they feel fear. The parents feel fear. That's crazy because that's not love. If you're looking for love, it means you don't have it. You know, a little simple. Isn't that simple but true? Tell me where I'm wrong. 888-775-3773. But if you're looking for love, you don't have it. If you're looking for morality and trying to teach morality to your children, you don't have it and your children don't have it. And you're seeking this because you know they don't have it and you don't have it. And so out of desperation and weakness, you looked outside. You look for an idol that you can look to for answers. But these idols were just created out of the minds of other fearful people. And you're Frankensteining the worldview of different fearful people and creating your own Frankenstein image of the world with no love. Because of this simple fact. If you're looking for it, you don't have it. That's why, you know, just reminding me yesterday of my shout out to the Subway, my Subway sandwich artist. She's a lovely lady. Was watching my show some time ago and realized that she needed to get off the dating apps. She's like, you're so right. I got to get off these dating apps because everyone here is just on to the next person, looking for love outside of you instead of knowing that it comes from within. Incredible stuff. Some of my thoughts on the Australian social media ban, and I want to get right to my caller here. Thanks for the patience, 888-775-3773. We'll check the chat and the super chats later in a moment here. But I want to quickly tell you about the other angle. The other angle to this, because it's not just about the children, I think. There's a whole nother angle. There are overlapping motivations. And so when they tell you, that's not free speech, that's not democracy, some of these people might have a different agenda. When some of them are saying, we must protect the children, and they're using the emotions of the parents to agree with them and get a law passed, it's not necessarily about the children. And in fact, there was one area, we call it Silicon Valley, big tech. This is one area in the world that really didn't like this coming down, this whole Australia banned social media thing. And some of them are describing this in articles. They're saying, why Silicon Valley panicked? Why Silicon Valley panicked over Australia's under 16 social media ban? And the consensus is this: the tech companies, and you saw even Elon Musk came out and said something about this. More on that in a moment. The tech companies here, they're worried about this precedent that this new law sets, because if Australia could do it, the world can do it. And the tech companies, if you remember, they opposed measures in Australia and Canada when they were talking about requiring social medias to pay for news content. You see, there was a controversy about news stories being posted all over places like Twitter and getting all sorts of traffic for their sites, but not for the news sites. And so they wanted to set up some way where the social media companies had to pay these big news companies and basically the mainstream media for allowing them to put their articles on their social media. And of course, big tech, Silicon Valley came out, no. And how can you blame them? They're just protecting their bottom line. We don't want that responsibility where we're going to have to pay for that. That's us who's going to have to foot the bill. If we don't have to pay more money, let's fight against it. Can you blame them? And it's similar here, where the precedent they're worried about is having to be linked up with the responsibility of these people who shouldn't be on their websites, and now they got to figure out how to regulate it. Now it's also raising these kids is their responsibility. Now they've got to foot the bill for the problems of these children or whatever's going on. So they're pushing right now for parental supervision, and they don't want to be saddled with this responsibility. They'd prefer to see a measure that requires parental consent, which is a more nebulous standard and divides responsibility between the company and its users. Okay? So yeah, they're caring, it's free speech. I'm sure Elon Musk really does care about free speech. Don't get me wrong. I really like him. But I think there's a lot more going on in the background. There's a lot more going on. Okay, the Australian law shows that any country could really do it. We have seen one country's laws tilt the global governance of social networks before. And so that's what they're worried about. So check this out. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is in fact responding to Elon Musk's criticism of this social media ban. Basically, Elon Musk said that the ban on this was, let me see here. What did he say? You know, Elon Musk criticized it, basically saying that this was a way to control the internet. This is what he said. In a post, he said, this law from Australia seems like a backdoor way to control access to the internet by all Australians. And I think he's essentially correct in many ways. But the thing is like everybody's trying to do this right now. And you can't really say Elon Musk and Silicon Valley is not trying to do that. A backdoor way to control access to the internet. So Albanese, the prime minister, is saying, he says Elon Musk he doesn't like that Elon Musk said that, and that he's pushing his X agenda, and he's pushing his agenda in Australia, a sovereign nation, with their own laws and their own way to do things, that he's using his X and by way of his tweeting and all that he's pushing his agenda in Australia. You know, Elon Musk is not a citizen of Australia as far as I know. He doesn't vote there and all that. Okay. And so that's the conflict between the Australian Prime Minister and Elon Musk. And it's like a little bit of global meddling if you think about it. I mean, what do y'all think? If I may remind you of a controversy that happened recently between Elon Musk and Brazil. You see, there were these allegations by the Brazilian Supreme Federal Court that Musk and his platform obstructed justice and enabled the dissemination of information. Because basically Musk started tweeting about the Brazilian judiciary. And according to World, that he instigated disobedience to court orders, particularly those involving the blocking of accounts linked to criminal activities. Now, the details may be, I don't know exactly how the details, what's being lied about, but the point is, Brazil wanted Elon Musk to block certain things, or else we're going to get rid of X. And he started saying, hey, this is not very democracy. This ain't very liberty. And so the criticisms came that this guy is trying to affect Brazilian politics, and what right does he have to influence and instigate certain things in Brazil? It's like, what do y'all think? I mean, so there's a case to be made about this kind of meddling, okay? That it's more than just democracy, free speech. It's state power. It's nation building. You know, there's the borders of a lot of nations go beyond their borders. It's called soft power. And we're going to get into that more after this call. But if you know anything about Georgia, and I'm not talking about Savannah, I'm talking about the country over near Russia, you might know a little bit about proxy wars and how the influence of nations meet up outside of their borders. More on that later on the world conflict, because it's a lot of it going on right now, and it's not all kinetic, but it's all war. More on that later, folks, on the state building powers of social media and how it's all they're closely related to governments, and it's a big old chess. You know, it's a chessboard on the world right now, and there are moves being made. More on that later. But I have a caller here who's been waiting patiently. Thank you so much. I want to welcome my caller. 888-775-3773. Caller, your name and where you calling from? Oh, I have not put you on. Hold on. Caller, your name and where you calling from? Hey, caller, You're talking to the anchor
Hello?
baby. Whoa, who we talking to? I hear you. Do you hear me? Caller. Going once.
Hello?
Hey, how you doing? You hear me? What's your name and where you calling from? You're on the air.
𝒏𝒊𝒄𝒌𝒔𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒎.
Hey, what's up, Beefit? How you doing, sir? Appreciate your call.
Hey, I appreciate what you're talking about today.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I've actually just been thinking about this after listening to the Michael Knowles interview with the smartest, or the highest IQ man in the world.
Chris Langan.
What?
Is that his name? Chris Langan?
What?
You said the Michael Knowles interview with the most smartest man in the world, right?
Yeah,
Chris Langan, who I believe is a Christian.
I'm not sure.
But anyways.
But anyway, I know that here's what I think is happening is that humanity used to spend a lot of time in our environment, and we used to look at our environment and spend an appreciable amount of our time contemplating our environment. So I was a kid that walked to school and walked home. It was a couple miles each way. So I had a couple hours every day, three hours, maybe 3 hours just walking to and back from school. If you ask kids why they hate school, it's because they're being forced into a chair and they're being told what to think, right? And my favorite thing when I got done from school is I'd walk home, I'd stop by the used bookstore, I'd just spend time just browsing the aisles looking for something that caught my interest, right? And then I would want to read that thing. So there's this raw thing that happened in ancient man where you were always out in kind of a non-human built reality, and you would have time to just contemplate, like, nature, who am I, what is all of this, right? And then as the agricultural revolution started, there was more like human stuff around, but you were still contemplating, like, even if you were walking around the city and there were factories and stuff that were man-made, you were still just contemplating your environment. But when you go to school and you're forced to sit down in that chair and you're forced to learn certain things, it can be very uncomfortable after a while. And so the favorite thing that a kid has is recess from that. And like you said, free play. But why is free play so important? Like, we know free play is good, but why is it good? Because it lets the kid do what the kid wants to do. And the kid gets to explore, and the kid gets to have his own thoughts. The thing that I think is causing the social anxiety is that when the kid has free time, they now get plugged into an algorithm, which is another man-made construction telling them to look at other man-made constructions. And they never really get that chance to actually just contemplate, right? And TikTok's the worst because it's, the higher the cycle rate that information goes through, the less you even get to contemplate what you just even read or looked at, right? So when I was a kid and I was reading and I put my book down, I could have some time thinking about what I read, or it was a stream of consciousness, and I might think about that, and I might think about what I read on my way to school the next day. And when you're constantly, when that contemplation and when that, I don't want to call it a skill set, but when that ability for you to decide what you want to go and see, but instead it is told to you what you need to see and what you need to learn, which is what these algorithms are doing. They're saying, well, this is what you need to see. This is what we want you to see. This is what we want you to learn. It's really stripped those kids from having an experience that human beings have had for, well, your Christian viewers are going to throw a tizzy over this, but millions of years of human evolution.
Millions? Controversial.
Of a part of your, 4.5 million years of us contemplating, who we are in this world and what is this world? Who am I? Where am I in it? But when you can kind of hijack that, essentially making them drug addicts with this dopamine reaction from social media, and you've essentially just turned them into a drug addict, and they've never learned to enjoy this part that made us human was, I believe, deep contemplation on things. And I think when you take that away, I think when that is never developed and never used, I think that's what's leading to a lot of these problems, is that the kids lack meaning. They don't understand their meaning. They're, and nobody really ever finds out, their meaning. But there's a certain soothing aspect about just walking around outside, thinking about who you are, what does it mean to be me, what is this world that I'm in, and like I used to get lost in my thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could go walking off into the woods behind my house, and I could just be, letting my mind go down rabbit holes forever. It wasn't like scattered. It was like I would just take this idea and think about it. But if you're like on social media and you're always like clicking on something and a notification goes ding and you're like checking the notification, there's really no way to have that kind of a conscious experience. What are your thoughts on that?
You're making me think about a number of things. You're making me think about how, I heard that back in the day, and I guess this must be quite a while ago, but you would hear back when, I guess, where they were doing classical music, but I heard that you would hear your favorite song maybe once, maybe twice in your whole life. You maybe hear it a handful of times if you were wealthy. In your whole entire life, because you'd have to see it performed, I guess, but that's part of it. No medium to record it in. And you're making me think about a number of things here. I was reading this thing about the agriculture revolution or whatever, and just the farmer society we're in, and how it really goes against the different. They're people with just different mentalities. They're not really meant to be told what to do and have everything set out for them like the farmers. It's the farmer versus the hunter, and I might have to bring this book and talk about it some other time when I know more about it. But you're talking about this, the lack of meaning and how it's led to a lot of these problems. An interesting thing I'd like to throw in there, the things that the children are taught. I mean, they're taught to worship the self and the mind. They're taught to worship the senses. That is that is the beginning and end of reality. Their sensuality, what they're feeling, and they're taught. And through this feeling, they're taught what we call love, but it's actually hate. They're taught that that love is when someone makes you feel good. That love is never say it. All these things that are not love. So they're taught all these things. I can't help but wonder, I mean, no wonder they're turning out like this. You're talking about these man-made constructions and the lack of feedback loops to contemplate and check what you saw or heard. Are you saying, I want to ask you, so you agree with this causal link between social media and their anxieties and all this?
Yeah. But I also think that, okay, so when you said, makes me feel good, right? So there's a very great doctor, Peter McCullough, and he gave this lecture, of all places, San Francisco University, and he was talking about sugar metabolism, but at the end of his speech, he started talking about the different reward paths towards feeling good, and one of them was the dopamine reward path, and the other one was the serotonin reward path. And so dopamine is something that acts more like cocaine, where you need to keep getting more and more dopamine in order to get that feeling of feeling good. And serotonin is something that's more even, and you just keep giving yourself the same amount of serotonin, and you stay at that same level of feeling good. It's not something that needs to chase itself. So you get dopamine by accomplishing things. Well, dopamine makes you want to accomplish stuff. And then once you accomplish it, the dopamine goes away. And so that feeling, that rush of wanting to do it is gone. So like maybe you've been trying to like hit some trick on your skateboard for like a year, right?
Yeah.
And then you finally hit it. Like it's gone now. Like now you gotta try to hit like a bigger trick and a bigger trick and a bigger trick. Where like serotonin is released more by like facial recognition, sitting down with your family, constantly providing, watching your kids grow up. It's a totally different chemical reward pathway in your brain. And so yes, these kids are taught like do stuff that makes you feel good. Doing stuff to make you feel good, I don't think is necessarily that bad, but when you're only feeling good because you're getting dopamine, that can be very dangerous. But if you're feeling good about yourself through the serotonin pathways and what leads to that, you're pretty much describing being like a good Christian when you're charitable to somebody, when you help somebody out, when you raise your family, when you provide for them every day, when you sit down with a meal with them, when you see old friends. Those are not dopamine rushes. Those are using the serotonin pathway. And so I don't think feeling good about yourself is wrong. I think it's the way that you go about feeling good. And they're two totally different ways that your brain feels good about itself.
So you are saying there is a causal link. You believe there is, and it's an interesting thing. I think it's worth exploring. Would you say too, then, because of that, you agree with this ban in Australia, the social media ban?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, just because it's kids, but I would say that it's also the source of anxiety for all adults, right? So we're only doing the ban because of this thing of protecting kids. I guess this is what I agree with. I agree with that everybody would be a lot better off spending almost no time having an algorithm tell them what the algorithm thinks is important for them to look at. And I think if people spent a lot more time thinking about what they wanted to have go into their brain and then seeking that out, they would be a lot more healthy. They'd be a lot more healthy if, I used to seek out the knowledge that I wanted, and now I can see that I'll just sit down in front of Facebook. Well, what are you going to research when you get on Facebook? I don't know. I'm just going to go through my notifications in my feeds. Well, what are you going to look at on TikTok when you sit down on TikTok? I don't know. Whatever comes up, right? There's no seeking for any of that information. That information is given to you by a robot algorithm, and that robot algorithm was also programmed by people. So you're just losing a connection with the natural state of yourself and the world that God made for you.
Is this a fair summary for to some of what you're saying? Because it sounded to me like you were describing the different reward pathways, but essentially the fix to that was an internal, the individual choosing to live a different way. Is that fair to boil down some of what you were saying? Like you were essentially saying that your approach to life had to change, and you would fix the pathways, et cetera, and deal with some of what you're talking about. Is that fair to say? That's up to the now. Stay with me on that. You said yes. If you could stay with me on that, if I may. Wouldn't you be kind of like a hypocritical parent to realize that, but then instead of modeling that, exemplifying that, teaching that, whatever you think is good, you turn around and say, I'm afraid for you, and I don't want you children to overcome this and have the faculties to defeat these pathways or whatever you believe it is. Instead, we're just going to ban it. We're just going to ban it because we're afraid of it.
First of all, I don't think you should even put that into your kids' lives. The kids are either getting it from, so one, schools are giving this to your kids. and you're giving it to your kids. This is just not something that is natural for the kid to have. People are giving them this thing that's acting like a drug. And it's using the same, like every single form of addiction.
But aren't you using other things as drugs in that same way with those pathways you're describing? You think all those parents banning social media aren't using other things as drugs?
Hold on. What I'm saying is that almost through whatever I do in my life, we call it research or not, is that almost every single form of addiction is a dopamine reaction. All of it is from dopamine. Overeating is from dopamine.
So but would you agree with me that parents are going through that? The parents are not safe from that. They have their own little dopamine addictions to other things.
I'd say that the entire dopamine addiction is pretty much a new novel thing in humanity. Maybe the last couple thousand years. Like it's not even normal to like have these addictions, but everything that is an addiction comes from chasing the dopamine rush. Everything that leads to what we would call a successful, well-balanced, healthy, feeling good about, like really feeling good about yourself life comes from serotonin building activities. But what we've done is when you allow, like, and when you do this as a kid, you're making your kid a drug addict. And then if you never really build the reward system, it's the job of the parents is to teach the kids behaviors and skills that they need to survive, not just say, well, kid, figure it out on your own. It's your job to provide that for them. But
do you believe they're doing that by just banning social media? Do you think they're teaching them that by just banning social media? How many boomers do you think are doom scrolling TikTok as well? I bet a whole bunch.
I think by banning,
they're all over Facebook.
Banning,
so the kids are going to get banned, and then they're going to come home, they're all banned, and then they're just going to watch the parents scroll on Facebook and TikTok?
I think they're banning social media because the parents have realized that they've already screwed up themselves. Like the parents realize, I've already dropped the ball. This is gone. This is going off the cliff. This is the last brake pedal that we have. But yeah, it was definitely the parents' fault because the parents, when I was a kid, they were talking about Sesame Street raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's even further than that, right? Now it's not even sitting them down in front of a television right now because the television is just broadcasting to everybody. But now they've got this little algorithm that specifically manipulates. I mean, this is like television, with Satan running it specifically for your house. It's
but
like
this algorithm affects the parents more than the children, I'd say. The children, they have even more experience. It's really this is like a...
The parents aren't immune from this either.
Right, and I think it's worse on them. I think they believe the TV. They still believe mainstream media. If anyone is if anyone is subject to this, is the parents. And instead of learning how to deal with it, raising children that can be ready for the future, they want to go along with the government and ban it, and then relinquish all these faculties and possibilities to learn and evolve, and give it up to some entity that does not love their children. I got to say, on this, I'm going the other way.
I spend a lot of my time trying to tell adults and parents, stop eating sugars and get off the YouTube where you're like, not the YouTube, get off the social medias where it's this notification and something's being broadcast to you, right? Like I get on YouTube when there's a program on there that I want to watch. I use YouTube just like television. Mm-hmm. It's this time, it's this person, I want to watch it, right? But I never just get on to my computer and just start scrolling for things to watch, right? Like
respect.
I don't do that.
I heard TV used to just shut off. I heard the TV just used to shut off. Back in the day when TVs came out, the program would come on, and then when the program was off, they'd say "Good night, America," and the TV, there would be no more programs. The broadcasting would stop.
And the programming. Well, and just think about the maniacal word programming, right?
Mm-hmm,
your programming is Indian. Oh, okay.
That is, I heard that. I'm like, that's kind of awesome.
Was it me being programmed? Is that what the programming was?
Ooh, that's another angle. That's true, sir.
Like we're ending your programming. Thank you. I'll go back to thinking for myself now.
The boob tube.
I mean, it's kind of funny, but it is kind of
freaky
exactly
too.
What was being done is we're giving you this message, and we're done giving you this message now. But I mean, one of the differences between television and the social media now was when I was a kid and we used to all like maybe watch a television show in the evening time. You would go to school, and everybody would still have the shared experience. Everybody would have watched The Cosby Show, Family Matters, The Simpsons, something, right? And you could all socialize around it and talk about it. But now the only thing you could talk about and socialize is if there was some form of uniform gossip that was talked about, because everybody's getting their own thing. And then when you look at what the kids like all relate to now, it's like skibbity toilet or something stupid.
Yeah. It's really all like the gray goo. The internet has become just a few things. YouTube, Snapchat. You know what I mean? I bet you when the internet first started coming out, there was all these fantasies of people saying it's going to be like the Wild West. There's going to be so many unique and different things. But no, the gray goo took over that too.
Yeah, it just became pornography and the dumbest. Well, the reason why it's like kind of like the most simple, dumbest thing that people can relate to is because we've taken away contemplation, right? Like when you take away contemplation and the time to contemplate and the time for deep thinking, and you just keep it at this shallow level of think about this, now think about this, now think about this. When you take that deep contemplation out of somebody, I mean, my thoughts is that that's a huge part of humanity that just got removed from us, not through a long-term process that we got adjusted to, but it happened within 25 years. Like deep contemplation removed. And human beings don't, we won't say evolve, but human beings don't adapt or adjust that quickly to changes that great and that systematic. And when you do that, just like the agricultural revolution happened, then we had cancer, heart disease, and all of these diseases happened because of the agricultural revolution, crooked teeth, everything. When you make a change that fast in an organism, the organism doesn't have a chance to adapt. And so maladies, illnesses, I'm not even saying misbehaviors like how a child acts. I'm saying misbehaviors like in the way your genome even acts to its environment. Like it's just not coded to live this way.
Man, technology has been a bit of a wrecking ball, man. 💊💄💄, appreciate your thoughts on this. I got to keep it moving along. Last thing you want to say before we move the wheels?
Yeah, it's very strange. You're satanic. Peace out.
Hey,
Bye.
no chat fighting. I don't want that on my show. Don't do that again.
She called me satanic.
No. Chat, fight it in the chat. Don't do it here. Bye-bye. Appreciate it. Call me again. Don't do that again, folks. All right, we're going to be militant about it. I don't freaking like it. Yeah, it's the snake pit for a reason. Do that in the snake pit. Let's see here. Thank you, everybody. 888-775-3773. Very cool, very cool, very cool. All right, y'all. So check it out. Conflict is going on right now. You know, speaking about some of these topics, you know, besides the conflict in the home and the debate in Australia, but even bigger than that, the conflict between different factions, world nations, and what do they call it? Conglomerates of power. You know them. Some have names. They're nations. NATO, BRICS. Some are faceless. The deep state. Some are not governments, but wealthy industries, the big tech, Silicon Valley, and the various motivations and agendas. You know, Elon Musk is close with Trump, and he's going to be part of the government. And it's all these things going on. And what it amounts to is conflict. And it's not always kinetic, as they call it. Little war terminology for you, meaning, it's physical. Guns, fighting, as opposed to wars of economy, wars of cyber wars, cyber attacks, trade wars, all sorts of conflict going on. And I appreciate your calls. Thank you for calling 888-775-3773. I'm going to get to you. But I wanted to express this concept a little further on overlapping motivations and how really these different groups I'm talking about, how these conglomerates of power, the levers they use is you. And your buttons. Guess what? Your buttons are the basic things. Your children, what you fear, what you love, what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad. And so they got all the Australians right now worried about the children. And it could very well be that the Australian government has used that as a way of putting up a wall, a cyber wall around their internet and making their internet sovereign. You can't. So now we control it, so nobody else can. Not the public can't do it, and Elon Musk can't do it, and whatever groups and factions are forming elsewhere can't do it. Do the Australians know what they bought? I don't know. Is it good? I don't know. Your nation should kind of fend for itself, right? But you understand this, right? The way the children are used and the sensibilities of the public, how they're used for evil. It brings me to another, I want to go through this maybe quick, a couple of news bites from the world. And to express this concept further, you may have heard of this country, Georgia, and they got major protests. And it's just like, it's getting, there's mayhem in Georgia as protesters armed with homemade machine guns blast riot police with fireworks. Chaos deepens as pro-EU campaigners and cops clash in fiery street battles. Over 100 arrested. All sorts of stuff. The country of Georgia, and they're fighting. There's fireworks. They're in the streets. It looks like Black Lives Matter riots. What are they rioting about? Well, one side wants to join the EU. You remember that in Ukraine? Wants to join NATO. That's not going to happen. And so why is this significant? And why is this significant? Because I'm expressing this concept of, saying one thing but doing another. And in Georgia, the West, Washington has done something similar. See, the controversy I'm talking about deals with this little country, Georgia. And if you know anything about Georgia, you see it's strategically located next to a little country called Russia. Okay, Russia, you got Georgia, and then it's like the West, right? EU countries and all that. And the thing is, there's been a tug of war, a geopolitical tug of war, not unlike other situations that happened in the world. You may have heard of Ukraine and the struggle, the tug of war that happened there, where a leader was going to come into power that was pro-NATO. But then funny stuff happened. Weird things happened, and there were protests all of a sudden. I'm sorry, no, I'm getting the story wrong. A leader rose up in Ukraine that wants to be friends with Russia. And then, protests started happening. And then democracy happened, and they had elections, and they voted in the guy that was pro the West, pro NATO. And it's like, when you just read about it, you're like, but elections happen, but it's not quite. It's the tug of war between great powers like Russia and the West. And Georgia's no different. You see, there was this bill that happened, the Foreign Agents Bill, okay? And this happened some time ago now, some months ago, or maybe it was last year. And this was a little bit of a controversy, but most didn't really see why. You see, Georgia's parliament passed a contentious bill, they call, requiring organizations in Georgia that are receiving foreign funding to register as foreign agents. We have similar laws in America. You know, and the point of the law is to protect against foreign influence. So now why would that matter? Why did that matter so much to Washington and the West that they would have passed this bill? Well, because they are foreignly influencing Georgia. And Russia doesn't like it. So now you got a tug of war, proxy wars. And it's not, and you realize it has, maybe for the people in Georgia, it might be about free speech, about sovereignty, about democracy. It might be those things. I mean, a foreign agents bill, it really is. If you're a patriot in Georgia, you'd be like, yeah, give us the foreign agents bill. Or maybe you're a Georgian who believes they should be part of NATO. You'd be against it. Those would be for those there. But for those outside in Washington saying we should care about it, I forget if they told us we should care. The only reason they do, it's about resources, control, and power. You understand this? It's a proxy war. And it's going on right now, even if it's not kinetic. Although it is kinetic, there are Russians fighting Ukrainians. There are North Koreans fighting the Ukrainians. There's American material. There's even, and I want to put an asterisk on this one because I forget if I'm getting this one wrong, but I believe there's even American or American-backed PMCs, paramilitary, something like that. It's a lot more kinetic than you think between Russia and America. Okay, you understand this? So it's a little bit about, I just wanted to mention that to express more of this concept of, you know, it's not always the label on the box. It's really pharaohs and kings fighting for control. Nissan shutdown. Who has a Nissan? Who loves Nissan? Major car manufacturer on the brink. I didn't know Toyota was so massively outcompeting everybody else. They make so many cars. I didn't know they were so on top. But basically, Nissan is warning they're on the brink of collapse with only 12 months to survive. Japanese auto firm employs 7,000 in the UK, 17,000 in the US. They could axe 9,000 jobs, 20% of its global. They're in trouble. Big company in trouble. And why am I talking about this? It is still related to the soft power stuff that I'm talking about. And the thing is, they're saying they didn't anticipate the electric vehicle revolution. They thought it was hype. Turns out it's not. It's coming in strong. Big time. And how is this related to the soft power stuff I'm talking about? See, the EV hype was not, or it may be, here's how I'm trying to put this. Whether it's artificial or not, I really don't know. But it's heavily pushed why? By governments. Governments closely working with Tesla even. Because it has to do with resources. Oh, it's about the planet, economy. Yeah, sure. Oh, it's about a better vehicle in some ways. Torque, energy, efficiency, charging stations, problems. Anyways, those are all things that may come down the road. But the fight over it, now the individuals and what they care about, how it's going to work, will it be better? That's totally besides the grander push, which is resources. How do we get the people to stop using stuff that's wasteful, stuff that is not going to be around forever, stuff that's hard to, whatever, gasoline. How do we get people to use less energy, to consume less? Oh, we get them to start thinking about the green, to worry about greenhouse gases. It's all about resources and getting you to consume less because, well, for many reasons. It lets those in control have more to play with. You're not consuming so much, so now your citizenry costs less, allowing you to move stuff over here because we're kind of in war constantly. It's not about you. Nissan shutdowns and their lack of anticipation. Well, they didn't anticipate global leaders basically preparing for resources wars. Am I fear-mongering at this point? Let's move on to the next point. Global attrition. They're saying a war of global attrition has already begun with massive trade wars. And you've heard some of it. Trump is serious. He's America first. He's telling the Canadians 25%. He's telling Mexico 25%. He's telling BRICS 100% tariffs. And it's not just them, okay? because beyond the battlefields of Ukraine and the conflagrations popping up in the Levant, and even in Africa, and even in South America, soft power around the world, the early stages of major trade wars are going on right now. Global attrition and hybrid warfare is what they're calling it. So I just wanted to mention that on this just to think a little higher on this whole global conflict stuff and how it may, and what that may mean for the little news story that you see tomorrow, the headline you might see tomorrow. Hopefully this allows you to have a little bit more space with the things you hear and see. But I got callers who've been holding patiently. Thank you very much. 888-775-3773. In fact, I have a caller right now. Your name and where are you calling from?
Kelly from Oregon.
What's up, Kelly? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good this evening, Nick.
Hey, appreciate the Thanksgiving messages and all that. Pleasure to hear from you.
Cool. I was wondering if I could talk for a minute with you concerning algorithms and dopamine and all that.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I'm an older lady and not as physical as I used to be. It's just part of the natural process. And as I've stated over and over again when I call in, I used to be military and for a young filly, I was very strong and all that stuff. So moving on, I noticed about a year ago, I just really started getting into these YouTube videos concerning anything to do with police and arrests and hunting people and chasing people and all this stuff. And I started wondering to myself, why am I so enjoying this and fascinated with it so much? And I figured it was because one time I had been arrested and I was kind of working through that experience and learning if I ever got in trouble again, how to behave. But, as I started looking at the bigger picture, I started realizing the body cams and how the police officers say they'll be chasing somebody. And I realized that, it's been so long since I've been able to run, jump fences, do these things. And it's just wonderful to be able to enjoy through YouTube or something this, vicariously, to be able to hunt, to jump and run, to really, really run and fight and all of that. So I just wanted to put that in there, that my little piece on why they're so enjoyable. And then, of course, the algorithms is why they so easily come up. And then on my feed, and then I choose, that one's too sad. That one doesn't interest me. I don't care about that. I've seen that type of arrest 1 million times, blah, blah, blah. So just wanted to put that out there.
I hear you, Kelly. Was there a question you had?
No.
No problem.
Is that bad?
No, it's not bad. It's not necessarily bad. People are allowed to make comments on my show, no problem at all. But, you made me think of something. If I may butt in to your little comment.
No, please.
Because, and I say butt in because you didn't ask for advice. You didn't ask a question.
No,
but
please do.
You said I thought a lot. I was thinking a lot about why I like these kinds of videos. And you're talking about like police body cams, arrests, they're very exciting and all that.
Uh-huh.
And okay, let's see. Should I even butt in here? She didn't ask, but I can't help but it was burning in my mind. Like it was clear that you don't really need to be doing that. There's no reason beyond thrill, I feel like if you go down that road, you're going to start assigning meaning to things that don't require that. And that's how you get I'm just saying careful with that. That's all I'm saying. Because there's nothing, you don't need to know anything beyond This is thrilling. That's why we do anything. That's what kind of pushes us and motivates us outside of us. So it's just, I heard you go into this thing about how I felt like I was arrested, or I feel like I'm living vicariously because I can't move so much. And I'm like, that's not true. It's just a thrill. It's just thrilling videos. Am I crazy? What do you think about what I said?
I'm sorry, you spoke a little. I think I heard what you said. You said, that's not true. That's just a thrill.
Yeah, they're just thrilling videos.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and just all
But anyways,
this stuff on.
thanks for your commentary.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't have a direct question.
It's no problem at all. You're more than welcome to just make a commentary. It's interesting.
Thank you.
It made me think of something. Oh, I appreciate it, Kelly. Anything else you want to talk about?
Just appreciating the talk about wars and rumors of war.
Yeah.
And I'll get off the phone and thank you very much.
Call me again, Kelly.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now. 888-775-3773. Did I even need to butt in? I'm just thinking, like, I thought she was about to tell me, so Nick, why do I care about these videos so much? And I already thought of the response. Maybe that's why I felt the need to butt in. She didn't even ask me for advice, so let's move on. I got another caller here. Your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, this is Arizona Man.
How you doing, Arizona Man? Appreciate your call. First time calling my show?
I'm first time calling your show, yes.
Thank you
sir.
so much. Right on.
Long time listener, big fan of the show.
Hey, right on. Appreciate that.
I'm calling you for the thrill.
Let's go.
Let's go. Hopefully, catching my breath, breathe deep. It's interesting. I used to speak publicly a lot and left that world. And now I'm kind of finding reasons to call back into it. So thank you for taking my call.
No problem at all.
So I was just calling about the Republic of Georgia, maybe a little bit of commentary. But my mentor was from the Republic of Georgia. Studied under him for like 15 years. Amazing man. He was 96 when he passed. And his father was the lead opera singer at the time of the Second World War.
Wow.
So he told me all about what that was like. And Stalin was actually from Georgia. He was from the town of Gori, which is like the second biggest town. And he kind of snuck back in there. The story is he came back to, he moved to Russia, became educated, and came back and was sitting in the fountain of the town playing his guitar, and he kind of enticed people into his graces and like rose to power there and toppled the government. He had a coup behind him. He was a Bolshevik. And but the big thing was that Georgia, there's still quite a bit of exports from Georgia to, like their biggest exports are to Turkey, to Russia, to China. So it's all of the countries that we're at proxy wars with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the breadbasket, and probably still is quite a bit the breadbasket of Russia. So a lot of the food that goes, that's probably supplies the troops or the population. And it's just super like resource dense region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. And it was pretty horrible. His father, they tried to erase, it was the beginning of the new history there, right? The Soviets came and they said, you have to forget about your history. And his father on the stage was they were big into their own history. One of the oldest, if not the oldest Christian countries in the world. They have their own language. It's like one of the few root languages. I think there's 8 of them, and it's one of them. The story of Jason and the Argonauts and the Golden Fleece comes from Georgia. It's part of the folklore. And when the communists or Bolsheviks, whatever you want to call them, came and toppled their government, they wanted my mentor's father and his crew. They're on the biggest stage in Tbilisi. He's on a postage stamp. He's that famous. His mother was the concert pianist there. But they told him, you guys have to stop. performing these old historic operas and plays because, like, we're starting a new history. And the Georgian people, like, they held on to their culture. They've been through a lot. And I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. But it's definitely like the strategic slice in that world, right under the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're protected. They're fairly isolated. They fought off the Khazars. They fought off the Mongols. And but everyone seems to think they can, or not everyone, but it's often that countries see them as like a little strategic niche because it connects two major seas. But they're pretty independent. They didn't want to join in with Russia, but the Russians were pretty, or the Soviets, I should say, were pretty brutal and exterminating his father and the rest of the cast in the opera there. Did horrible things.
Wow. Amazing history, man. I love this. Very fascinating. I mean, so many threads to pull on for myself. Starting a new history. Say again?
You would love this guy. That was my mentor. I think you and I have a lot in common.
I'm searching up Georgia. I mean, this is probably the wrong thing to search, but I'm already searching up Georgia opera. Like, I want to get all into this. It's amazing, man.
They did a documentary on him. There's a movie about. I just don't want to. I don't want
Email
to,
me. radio@JesseLeePeterson.com.
Okay, cool.
Please
I'll
do.
shoot that over to you. Yeah. So he was amazing harrowing story. It's all in the movie about how he escaped all of that and became a symphony conductor. He was, concert pianist. He spoke in a number of languages. Amazing dude. I think he's right up your alley.
Fascinating, man. It really does sound like up my alley. Man, a new history. That's like 101 to what? Like control. I'm speaking blunt. I'm speaking inaccurately, maybe, but like to control a nation and communism and all that. You have to like destroy their history, start a new history to the point down to the opera, down to the things they enjoy, the art. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you see that here, same sort of thing. Yep. They're cutting down statues, they're renaming schools, they're erasing the history, and
it's conquest.
I don't know that they can demoralize the Georgians. They've done a pretty good job here with television and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
shout out Georgians. Sounds like they're tough. That's very cool. And you said, are they Christian over there? Or?
Yes, yeah, they're one of the oldest Christian countries in the world. They have a story about Jesus, so many great stories. But Jesus, apparently, they have a story of him visiting Georgia before he, went back to the Holy Land when he was kind of on his walkabout. And the story is that there was this farmer, and he was out in his field, and it was like the end of harvest for wheat. And it was just him, and he's taking care of his family, and he's trying to get the wheat in. And he can see out in the distance that the storm clouds are rising. And so he's like sweating. He's like, he's got to get it in. If he doesn't get it in before it rains, it's going to ruin, it's going to mold. He won't be able to store it. And he's going to, maybe lose his farm or starve or whatever. And so he's hustling. And he turns around, and there's this guy there, standing there, and he says, let's get this done. And so the guy works next to him for hours to get all of the wheat in. And they work together, and as soon as they get all of the wheat into the barn, like they harvest it, they're successful, like the thunder lightning claps, and it starts pouring rain. And the guy turns around, and there's nobody there. And that's supposedly their story of Jesus visiting Georgia.
Wow, never heard this, man. Thank you for that. Seriously. Anything else you want to say before we move the wheels?
No, just keep up the good work. Love you guys. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, sir. Call me again.
All right. Take care. Thank you, Nick. I wish you well.
Pleasure. 888-775-3773. Some threads to pull on. Fascinating stuff. I do declare the fleece is mighty gold, sir. I heard that's a quote from some Georgian mythology. I heard somewhere in my chat. But I'll get back to chat and super chats in a moment. But first, I need to do this real quick. The annexation. MAGA takes over Canada. Wouldn't that be amazing? Save the Canadians from their own government, from their own capturing. They can't do it themselves. Maybe they can. If only they dealt with, if only they didn't believe the thoughts. If only they didn't have fear. But basically, the story, the news goes that last Friday, Justin Trudeau flew to Mar-a-Lago unannounced after Trump threatened to impose sweeping tariffs on Canadian products. Specifically, Trump is threatening to impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico over their failures to curb the flow of illegal immigrants and illicit drugs from those countries into the U.S. And the globalists are apoplectic. You can't put a tariff. It's going to bring up the prices for the citizens, like they ever cared about that before. He's doing this for America. America first. You better get it figured out. And we're going to do our own industry here if we have to. Trudeau is saying, don't do it, please. It's going to ruin Canada. You know, it's got me thinking, why is a trade deficit going to ruin a country? How badly are you mismanaging this thing? Before nibbling on crab cocktail and slurping down oysters, the issues of tariffs, border security, and trade deficits were front and center. You know, I read this and I wasn't even going to comment on it, but, you know, it's like this. I have no problem with that with Trump. It's like all gold, everything. You know, the man grew up like that. The man comes from that stock. But I started thinking about these politicians. Like, it's like a big corrupt club. And this is what I mean. You know, you must know this by now, that politicians, they weren't always serving public office and becoming excessively wealthy from doing nothing. The early founding fathers and men after them, they were all already masters of their domain. Kind of like Trump. They were already came from something, or they became masters of their domain and had things going on before running for public office in many cases. Congressional salaries were not very much, and people certainly didn't become excessively wealthy from just being in Congress. And then the revolving door, you know, they come out of public office and then they go into the private sector, and then they have all sorts of connections and insights, and so they use that to make money in the private sector, and it's just a revolving door. Very corrupt stuff. So, slurping down those oysters, Mr. Trudeau, I wonder where you came from. According to two people at the table who heard the discussion, Trump, while cordial and welcoming, was very direct when it came to what he wanted from his counterpart to the north. Like a man. Very cool. Very nice to hear. Trudeau told Trump he cannot levy the tariff because it would kill the Canadian economy completely. That's your fault. How are you messing this up, man? You got Canada, so many resources, the oil sands. You got everything. Trump replied asking, so your country can't survive unless it's ripping off the U.S. to the tune of $100 billion? I had to educate myself a little bit. I'm like, what's he talking about ripping off? He's talking about a trade deficit. And I heard that. I'm like, trade deficit? Who's losing out? I'm ignorant. I had to educate myself. I heard the word deficit, and I'm thinking, well, one country's getting something, the other is not? No, deficit in this case just means a flow of money. Money is flowing out of America. They're receiving goods for it. But if they're receiving, I don't know, put it like this. It's like we import. The point is, the deficit is about how much money is flowing out of America. And he's saying, $100 billion, you guys are getting all this money from us. And if you don't continue doing that, the Canadian economy is completely destroyed. No. So Trump will defend America first. Amazing. You know he's the bad guy for this. They're going to call him the bad guy. But like Canada's economic future is up to Trump, that's what a failure of leadership. Trump then suggested to Trudeau that Canada become the 51st state, which caused the Prime Minister and others to laugh nervously, sources told Fox News. Don't be why are you so nervous? It's going to be great. It's going to be great. For the people, maybe not for those fat cats up top, but it'll be great for the people. Where we extend the U.S. border to the other side of Canada? Yeah. I bet you many Canadians would be happy. He trolled Trudeau that if he cannot handle his list of demands without ripping the U.S. off in trade, maybe Canada should really become a state or two of Trudeau. And Trudeau could become a governor, puppet governor under Trump. Very cool. So, although I cannot say to you what I wish I could say and present news that Canada has been annexed by America. That's an alternate timeline. I can't tell you that America has a tough leader, and I think it's going to be good for the world. Okay? I think it's going to be great. And they got to handle this border stuff. You know, I have this whole thing on migrant crime and how, you know, you must have heard this before. Migrants and illegals and even the undocumented and legal immigrants commit crime way less than the native population. I might have to leave this for another day. You might know this, that there's lies going on about that, but essentially, they're basically not reporting on it. And so they're lying to you when they say that. We'll get into the nitty-gritties of it maybe another day. Just kind of over. It's not really right now. We'll do it another day. But you might be fascinated by the nitty-gritties because the levels they go to lie about this is incredible. But so we'll leave that, okay? Trade wars going on. Trump going beast mode, as they're saying. Threatening 100% tariff. What's this? Give me the article. They're saying Trump goes beast mode. That's what this article says. To protect the U.S. dollar. They gave him the laser eyes. But BRICS, you know, you've heard some of my callers talk about the nations we're in a proxy war with. China is in there. Brazil, Russia. They want to make their currency. They want to trade with each other. They want to be an economic competitor to America. And you know what? That's great. That's fine and dandy. Let's compete. But I'm glad this shows what? This shows that Trump is willing to compete, you know, as opposed to pushing soft power, pushing NATO. And, you know, I'm not saying he's not doing that, but I'm just glad that it's like, no, this shows that I'm willing to fight on the economic stage on the let's compete fair. And he wants to protect the U.S. dollar. You know, on this ramble, if I may further, about what I'm thinking of, it's like, you might think many things about NATO. It's like all these people want to push gay rights or pride parades in the world. It's messed up, okay? And the people who say, well, you know, there's people who criticize Washington and they say, you know, they're not exactly the good guys here. And this Russia stuff, it's not like Russia's exactly the bad guys here. They're a nation that wants to be Christian and they don't. So they point to these things. All this rambling to say what? The one thing I want to crystallize is that it feels like a lot of people really don't know what they're talking about. And although some of those things might be true, and we're really not, the Washington's really not good. NATO's not really good. Russia's not exactly the bad guys they make them out to be. What it means for us, the individual, should these social orders and orders of power be contested in the world, what that means is chaos for us. And so for the people who feel so flippant about it and just saying, yeah, Russia beat America, you really don't know what that really means. So just be thankful you got someone who, in my opinion, wants to do it the right way, is tough for us, wants to protect the U.S. dollar. Yes, that's still kind of a good thing for us. I guess the world really is pharaohs and kings, but if you ask me, if that's how the world is, so be it. I just want a good king. Am I an Israelite? Didn't God tell the Israelites have no king? I'm just saying that Trump's a good guy. And if it's going to be someone leading, if it's not really the people, if the people never really lead stuff, then you know what? Emperor Trump, hopefully you do a good job. Anyways, I'm just rambling at this point. Hopefully some of that made sense. Trade wars are going on, conflicts and all that. But that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Let's get into the super chats in the chat and see what y'all are saying about some of these things. Because that's pretty much it. We did the calls, we did the topics. Let's see what the super chats are saying. Very much appreciated here. Thank you, He Black. Appreciate the super chat. Says Nick Stein. Nick Stein, the name hate is... See, I should have checked 𝒏𝒊𝒄𝒌𝒔. My apologies. I was talking about that. Jonathan Haidt. Apparently it's Haidt. Jonathan Haidt, who wrote Anxious Generation. Thanks for the correction, 𝒏𝒊𝒄𝒌𝒔. Always a pleasure. David Morgan with the super chat. Generous. Thank you for that. Beef It to Beef It says, shout out to the chat tards. Very nice. Always a pleasure. Kale Samogi with the super chat says, figure it out, bud. Trump. Very nice. Using some commentary. Anchor Baby Jokes. Brian, thank you so much. Over there on Rumble. Says, keep on keeping, Captain Brother. Man. No, thank you. All my supporters on D Live. What's up, Dolphin? Can't read the rest of that. Dolphin Spirit. Very cool. Says, órale, ese vato Nick es loco. ¿Qué onda? Thank you for the support. All right, y'all. Let's see what else here. That's the super chats. We got some coffees. Buymeacoffee.com/anchorbaby. And the lovely Kelly has sent me some coffees. Kelly, ignore what I was saying. You did not ask me for advice. She does, however, send me a coffee, it says, and asks, what does based mean? I hear that constantly, but I am unsure. Evening. Let me see. How do we start this? Should we go all the way to Lil B, the based god, to educate Kelly on the word based? See, all you really need to know is that the world takes colloquialisms and they simplify them until they're meaningless. Because right now, the word based just means something you like. And something that is based just means you agree with it. And if it's not based, means you don't like it. I like it, it's based. I don't like it, it's not based. But it used to have like a sort of meaning, I guess. I mean, even back when it first came out, it kind of just meant, I think it just meant cool, sort of. But this rapper, this guy named Lil B, the based god, he calls himself the based god. Some, you'll have to ask maybe other internet historians what they think. But some believe, some can link the word based, its etymology back to Lil B, the based god. And I believe, and I could be wrong, how Lil B meant it was to believe in what you believe in, even if others are calling it stupid. Because now we're getting in the weeds, folks. Kelly, I've confused you. Forget it. Look, the point is, based, the way people are using it now just means they like it. If something is based, it just means they agree with it. That's really all it means now. If you ask the Hake Report, based means based in the truth. Others might say based in logic. But even those are all others, even further tessellations of the original word. It really just means something you like, Kelly. But you know what? You're pretty based for super chatting the show. Thanks for the coffee. Buymeacoffee.com/anchorbaby. That's it, folks. What else here? Let me scroll. What are y'all? What's chat saying? What is chat saying? What's up, chat? You've been here, enjoying the show, kicking it back. Socks, white dirty socks out, smelly. You kicked the shoes off. You're like, hey, I hate this song. Give me the aux cord. You're eating with your mouth open. You're like, hey, give me the plate. Oh, this food. You haven't even said thank you. You already made yourself a plate. And you won't even click the like button. You won't even jump into the chat and say hi. Well, you don't even say hi no more. Show some decorum. Okay? Please, don't be so rude. Show some decorum. You've come into my home. Click the like button. Don't be rude. Very nice. Click the like button. Don't be rude. All right, what's chat saying? Alias name has been quite a how do I put this? You're very how do I put this? I might need a timeout, alias name. An alias name might be the one to do it. I'm just, if you know anything. Nick, you should be rocking the Christmas background. What the? This isn't cozy at all. You make a great point, sir. You make a great point, fellow American in the chat. Georgia on my mind. I do declare that fleece is mighty gold, sir. On account of my prayer. We got Santas in the chat. We believe in Santa over here. I don't know about y'all, but I believe in Santa. You know, I actually met some children under 10 who didn't believe in Santa, and they were laughing at me. They're like, you believe in Santa? And the parents were right there. They were like, oh, yeah, no, I let my children, I'm not going to lie to them or something, some crap like that. She's a nice lady. And they're like, I don't believe in Santa. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, next thing you're going to tell me you don't even believe in God. What a shame. They were laughing at me. Like they don't believe in Santa. What a mess. Imagine being under 10 years old and not believing in Santa. Imagine being 40 years old or imagine being any age and not believing in Santa. What a mess. Nick of Canada becomes America. I'll stream myself doing a week-long silent prayer. Nick getting deported to Canada. Based. Lincoln Lewis has been on that. He's ready to get me out of here. You know what, Lincoln Lewis? I'll leave with a tear, but a smile, knowing that the Union, y'all might just be able to keep it for another 100 years. You know, you import the non-American world, so a lot of it third world. You don't have America anymore. Straight up. I don't like. Let's see here. Very nice chat. Annex Canada. We are getting requests in the chat. Nice. All right, y'all. I just wanted to check what chat was saying. That's the super chats. That's the coffees. That's the topics. That's the calls. No one's calling. We have no more topics. What do you want me to do? Squeeze. There's no more juice. There's nothing else to squeeze. Ain't no more juice coming out of this show. So with that, I will say goodbye until tomorrow. So appreciate everybody who was with me today. See you tomorrow for Manhood Hour on the JLP Show, the Bond Network, and beyond. More American Anchor Baby, as we usually do. All right, y'all. Take care. Peace. All right, little Nick's got to say bye too. Bye.